Hey everybody, it's Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. And a lot of times at the beginning of these conversations, I like to give a pretty specific example. But this one I'm going to go with vague because it affects people I care about. And it was a very unique moment. There was just a time that I can think of recently where I watched a social dynamic unfold. There was a person who was in a very precarious position socially, but did not realize that they were on wobbly footing, that they didn't look very good, and that they were in danger of a bad outcome. Then I had another friend who was with us who is very socially sophisticated and very humble. And a moment came up in the conversation, again, being intentionally vague so as to protect the innocent and maybe the guilty. And it was the deciding moment of this little social exchange. And in that moment, I watched my humble friend take the bullet. My humble friend stepped in, absorbed responsibility for something that was not their responsibility, and let the person who didn't even understand the precarious nature of their situation off the hook. It was just a profound act of grace. It was impulsive. It was intuitive. It was in the moment. There was no time for strategizing or anything else. And in that moment, I got both a pretty good look at my humble, socially intuitive friend's wiring and DNA. They didn't even calculate. That's just who they are. Dang. I want to be good like that in those kind of moments. I want to be sophisticated enough to see the moment and seize it. But I also want to be of such a character that I would act in the way this person acted. But also in that moment, I saw the complete not getting itness of my oblivious other friend who had no idea what had just been done for him. And then because he didn't get it, he actually mocked the friend who took the bullet for him socially for the fact that he had screwed something up. Again, I'm having to be really vague to make the story work, but I think you can picture kind of what I'm describing. I feel like that's part of the social dynamic that we're running into here in Matthew 27. You've got a situation where Jesus is laying down his life voluntarily as a ransom for many, and you've got a whole lot of not getting it going on the other side. You got people mocking him. You got people who just simply aren't understanding the equation or his motivation or what is happening here at all. And I think that's the reason why Matthew gives us this interesting little exchange that we're going to be looking at today. So we got two things to look at. We're going to start in Matthew 27:46. About the ninth hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? Yesterday we talked about last words. We talked about the fact that it is a bizarre fluke of the unfolding of history, that it's Aramaic, that Jesus says these final words or close to final words in, but we know what they mean. My God, why have you forsaken me? Now, as I alluded to, that is a reference back to a psalm that I think I read the entirety of not too long ago because it so corresponds with this passage in Matthew. But Psalm 22 opens with, quite literally, my God, why have you forsaken me? This isn't some little bumble where Jesus just accidentally blurted out something that kind of sounds like this. This is word for word. Jesus is quoting this passage. He is intending people to go and look up the passage and think about it. If somebody puts a phone number in a movie or a TV show that isn't 555, they know dang well people are going to call it. And if they're clever, they're going to put some kind of ad on there, do something, it's that guerrilla marketing kind of mindset. And it's not marketing, but come on, Jesus fully intends to call to mind Psalm 22, and he wants people to go look it up. Go read the thing. Go see what it's about. And you can go look it up and read the thing for yourself as well. But he starts the opening line, my God, why have you forsaken me? Okay, well, what comes after that? Maybe some people would remember that the next thing is, why are you so far from saving me? So far from the words of my groaning. Oh my God, I cry out by day, but you don't answer. By night, and am not silent. Yet you are enthroned as the Holy One. You are the praise of Israel. In you our fathers put their trust. They trusted, and you delivered them. Look at what's happening here. Even if you can only remember the first 3 verses after the opening line that Jesus quoted, think about the journey that takes you on. someone is feeling this rejection. Well, he's up there with a sign that says that he's king of the Jews. He's king of God's chosen people. He's been accused of claiming to be the Son of God, the Messiah. And so we're seeing this rejection. It's meant to beg the question, why? What could be God's grand design in rejecting this person? Is he the king of the Jews? Is he God in the flesh? Then why is God the Father rejecting him? Why are you so far from me? But then the journey goes on to say, I cry out, but you don't answer. But still, verse 3, yet you're enthroned as the Holy One. You're the praise of Israel. In you, our fathers put their trust, and you delivered them. And so it isn't just a line of lament. It continues to work itself out toward a line that expresses trust. You will deliver. You will see this thing through. This isn't really true abandonment for all of time. This is a moment. This is a necessity. And I think what you're getting here is both a profoundly human moment from Jesus, where he, just like he did when he was tempted by Satan in the desert, he leans into the Word of God. And that's nourishes him. That connects him to his Father. He doesn't even write his own line here to say these last things. He quotes something that God inspired, that is the Word of God itself. Man doesn't live by bread alone. Man doesn't live by not getting crucified alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. My God, why have you forsaken me? And I think that would have spooled up in the minds of people, or prompted people to go and look at the rest of that flow of thought. And I don't think Jesus just meant, why have you forsaken me? I think he meant all the stuff that came after that as well. And I don't think it's stretching it to say that I think he meant that, because he indicated it when he was telling the disciples again and again. No, I'm going to get crucified by the chief priests and the elders, and then I'm going to be raised on the third day. Clearly, Psalm 22 moves in and out of despair and the optimism for the provision of God, and that seems to be on display here. But now to that little detail that just kind of cruises by when you think about the story of the crucifixion, because it's hard to know what to do with it. But here it is very simply. Verse 47, when some of those standing there heard this, they said, he's calling Elijah. My Hebrew is garbage. I had to study some of that to get into all of these things that I do in school and everything. I don't remember any of it. I rely entirely on other people who are good at it. If that makes you respect me less, I really am okay with that. I never claimed to be the smartest, bestest Bible guy ever. We're doing this together as peers, not with me as the genius expert. So, hey, I don't know much of anything about Hebrew. People who do and are smarter than me and have put more time into that tell me that there is a linguistic connection between the Hebrew for Elijah and this Aramaic, Eloi, Eloi. I take their word for it. Let's assume that that's true and move forward. The text seems to indicate that it would be reasonable for them to misunderstand it in this way. Well, we know from a few passages in the Old Testament that Jews at this time had fixated on this idea of Elijah as being the one who was going to come back, or there's going to be some messianic connection to Elijah. And maybe a few people in the crowd were like, whoa, that's our buzzword. That's our guy. That fits with our eschatology and how we imagine the world is supposed to unfold. And they're triggered to action. They're like, we got to do something. We need to make some kind of gesture right now of solidarity with this guy who we were kind of here looking at skeptically. And so out of misunderstanding, as an act of mercy, the context indicates that this was an act of mercy. This isn't like offering the wine and the gall on the previous page. And then it says, immediately one of them ran and got a sponge, and he filled it with wine vinegar, and he put it on a stick, and he offered it to Jesus to drink. But then, again, this is the context where we realize that this was intended as a nice gesture. I mean, wine vinegar doesn't sound like the thing that would really, scratch my itch if I were being crucified. But they clearly meant it well because of the way people respond. Verse 49, the rest, that being people who still are not excited about Jesus and are happy to see him getting crucified, said, now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him. So now there's another mockery that comes out of it. But what is this debate that's going on? Should we give the crucified Jesus wine or should we not? Well, is he claiming that Elijah is what? Elijah? Well, I don't know if it is Elijah. Elijah, what are we even doing? Elijah? Huh? Wine vinegar? What? It's not even the same language. What? This is just absolutely baffling. Why would Matthew put this in here? Well, one of two reasons comes to mind. I'm not sure either of these are right. This is what comes to mind. Possibility number one. There was a whole bunch of people who were there that day, and they were like, nah, I heard him saying stuff about Elijah or something, and some rumor had taken off, and Matthew really wanted to clarify that, and he could kill two birds with one stone by demonstrating that Jesus quoted from Psalm 22, and Matthew would want people to go to Psalm 22 because Jesus was prompting them to go to Psalm 22, and so Matthew wants to dispel some rumors and clarify some things that have been floating around about what Jesus actually said right there and whether he was invoking or summoning Elijah and then Elijah didn't show up. It looks pretty bad for Jesus if he was trying to summon Elijah and then it didn't work. So Matthew would be incentivized to clarify that. Maybe he's just crushing some confusion or a rumor. Possibility number two, and maybe both are true, is that he's just trying to demonstrate that nobody got it. Nobody standing there understood it. And implicitly, it can be assumed that Matthew's probably saying, and if you were standing there, you wouldn't have got it. You wouldn't have understood what this means, what the implications were. It's a guy getting crucified. It got dark. This is weird. He's behaving weirdly. He's like a sheep to the slaughter. He's quoting Bible verses up there. He's having warm conversation with one of the two criminals up there. Pilate is acting weird. Yeah, the whole thing is weird, but at its core, it's a crucifixion of another messianic claimant. I don't know. I've heard about so many of these. I don't really know what to do with it. I think if we were there, I think Matthew is saying if we were there, and I think this little text indicates that if we were there, we just wouldn't have understood it. The implications were unclear to the crowd, and they're having some weird debate about wine and Elijah or something. That's just not it. That's not at the heart of what's going on here. And so Jesus is making this gigantic sacrificial move, much like what my friend made socially in this ambiguous example that I'm half sharing with you. And somebody else is there, in this case, the whole crowd, all of humanity, and they don't get that they're in trouble. They don't get that they're on thin ice and they're in a precarious position and that they need to be saved. And they don't realize that they are being saved. And much like my friend who didn't look very good in this particular ambiguous example I'm half sharing with you, not only didn't understand that they had been delivered at someone else's expense socially, but they even mocked that person. Kind of the same deal here. These people have no idea what's going on. They don't understand that they're in need. They don't understand that their need is being addressed right in front of their faces. They're debating silly tangential things. And on top of that, there's even mockery involved on the part of those who are mad about Elijah's stuff. Jesus is drawing on a deep well from every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. And then you got other people who are completely whiffing on the significance of that and are reading into the situation. They're inflicting on it their own little theological half-baked preferences and totally missing that what Jesus is doing here is taking a bullet that is meant for them right in front of their faces. They didn't get it. I wouldn't have got it. You probably wouldn't have got it. And I think this passage paints that picture really nicely. There's going to be a bonus episode on Saturday this week. I got some stuff cooking, and I'm very excited about it. We got stuff coming up on this podcast that I've been talking about, the next book. We got a new look for some things that I'm pretty excited to roll out as a way to help make sense of this as the back catalog continues to grow. I want people to be able to navigate it and use it as a resource. We're going to talk through a whole bunch of stuff about the YouTube channel, about what we're doing here, about where we're going next on Saturday. So if you can block out a little bit extra time to hang out with me and game that out, I would be very, very grateful. And I just want to say once again, we're just about to the end of the book of Matthew. I think we're going to be done right at the end of the year and start a new thing right at the beginning of the new year. That's a great time to bring a friend, to bring somebody you care about into the conversation. And I'd be really honored if you would be thinking about sharing this with someone very intentionally in that way. All right, more on that on Saturday. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Let's do this again soon.